We're going to be fabricating a temporary crown utilizing the direct crown, temporary crown shells. This particular case that we're going to be discussing is going to be a 3-unit bridge that will be providing a 3-unit bridge restoration, temporary restoration for. The patient at this point has had the preparation done, and we are now going to do the provisional temporization right in the patient's mouth. So what we will do, we'll start out with the crown form. In this particular case, we're on the upper right, and we're going to go into the case and pull out the bridge segment that comes out of for that proper side of the mouth. And you can see by this that it is oversized. So what we will do is go back and trim that so that it fits just this 3-unit bridge that we're dealing with today. I'm going to go back to the lab at this point. I'd be using it chairside probably with a high-speed drill and going ahead and trimming it to get it to shape. You'll see that the walls of this particular tooth are these particular preparations are fairly short, so I'm going to have to take and do a little trimming of the buccal and lingual walls of this temporary shell form. And then when I come back, we will go ahead and try in the shell form. All right, we return back to the patient with our trimmed polycarbonate direct crown shell. And you can see we're short of the margins a little bit. We're not really worried about that at this point in time. We just want to make sure that we have a passive fit. In reality, in the patient's mouth, we'd have them closed down, make sure that we can get as close to being fully seated as possible with this restoration. And at this point, we will decide whether or not we're going to be utilizing a technique with either a Bis Acryl aligner or with an acrylic lined shell. So what we'll do for this first case is I am going to be using a Bis Acryl liner within this temporary polycarbonate crown shell. In order to use the Bis Acryl material, first of all, there are many Bis Acryls on the market, but you're going to be using a dual syringe Bis Acryl material. And what you have to do in order to get the Bis Acryl material to stick to the polycarbonate shell is to use a Bis Acryl varnish. Two materials that we know work very well with this are the Sultan material and the Stern Gold Bis Acryl varnishes. So we're going to put a small amount of the Bis Acryl varnish inside of this polycarbonate shell. And I'm going to put just a dot down there. And I'll put a dot down inside there, and I will take and paint the internal aspects and any of the external aspects that we may feel that we need to get adhesion to the polycarbonate material. So I have painted the internal aspects with this Bis Acryl technique. The varnish that we use to put the Bis Acryl inside of the polycarbonate shell is cured by utilizing light, and you have to light cure it for 30 seconds. And for purposes of demonstration only, I've cured that for 30 seconds. And what we'll do is start to add the Bis Acryl material to the polycarbonate shell. You'll see it mixing as it goes through the syringe tip. What I would recommend is just take a small amount and express it out first so that you make sure you have a good quality mix inside, keeping the tip down inside of the Bis Acryl material. Because we're doing a pontic for this bridge, I want to make sure I've kind of overfilled in the pontic area so we fill right down to the gingiva. And we'll go back to the patient and place the restoration onto the model. So we're going to place the restoration onto the model, and at this point we can wipe off bits of excess that we would have within the patient's mouth. The Bis Acryl will set according to each manufacturer's instructions. What you don't want to do is let it get to a firm seat before you test it to see if you can remove it from the mouth. So you will get it to the point where it starts to get into a rubbery stage with the Bis Acryl, and then you'll tease it off and then back onto the model. And then tease it off and back onto the model. And once you've done this a number of times, you'll just leave it sit, have the patient close completely into maximum intercuspation, and you will end up with a restoration that will be very close to an ideal occlusion this way. You let the material set to its full set after you had it on and off a couple of times, being sure that you're not going to lock into the interproximals. Okay, we'll take the lined shell now and take it back to the lab and go ahead and trim it back to its margins and make it look pretty. The final temporary restoration is delivered back to the patient. The margins are checked and verified that it is seating fully, and at that point you would place it in with a good temporary cement.